And then he gave an example of Srila Saraswati Thakur. He said, once our Guru Maharaj was giving a lecture in South India. And the people were listening. And one man, he heard that sometimes Saraswati Thakur, he's speaking Bengali, sometimes English, sometimes Sanskrit, Hindi, many different, and he said, Swamiji, if you will just speak, and he gave some particular language. And he said, then we can understand everything. And Guru Maharaj said, but Saraswati Thakur answered that man by saying, I'm not speaking any particular language. He said, there is the spiritual world, and their concept is substance. So I'm trying to represent that to you. I'm trying to translate that spiritual substance in a language that makes it accessible to you in this plane. So it's not that I'm speaking English, Sanskrit, Bengali, or any other language. But I'm trying to represent that to you. And Guru Maharaj reiterated, we're not interested in the language world, we're interested in the thought world. And I don't find any superior thoughts to what he expressed. So I couldn't help but think, hearing everyone here, these very capable devotees on demand, they shift from Portuguese to English to Spanish to Italian to different languages. It's beautiful to hear Krishna consciousness represented in different languages. And I remember when I first had the opportunity to preach in Russia, and what then was the Soviet Union, as they like to say now, the former Soviet Union. So we used to travel around Eastern Europe, as we mentioned earlier, to somebody from Croatia, the former Yugoslavia, and those Eastern Bloc countries, and then into Russia. And regularly, I had the opportunity, practically every few days, to be translated into a new language, and I would keep hearing this Krishna conception expressed in these new languages. But I remember maybe the cumulative effect of this impacted me when we were in Russia. At that time, the first time, it was really exciting hearing Krishna conception being reproduced in Russian language. And we had this impression that each word that was now connecting to the Krishna conception was somehow being restored to its pristine glory, you could say. Each word that came in connection with this conception was Krishnaized, to use one of Prabhupada's expressions, and it was sounding very enchanting to hear that. And actually, sometimes Srila Guru Maharaj would mention, quoting Madhvacharya, that he said in one place, like a horse, we put reins on a horse to direct it this way and that way. So he said, but Madhva said, if you remove the reins, the horse will go in his own direction. So he said, language, words, they're like that. We're locally, from some local, provincial point of view, imposing some kind of meaning or context, and a word becomes associated with something. Right? That's why they have language police in different countries around the world. Like in France, they have a language police to try and prevent American-isms from entering the language. You know, oh, tant pis pour toi, merde. You know, another Americanism has entered our language. So instead of keyboard, they have some word that's like, you see how long my hands are? Well, the French word for keyboard is like that long. Right? So it's like, it starts over here and then it ends over there. It's really long. Okay? So, and everybody has something like that because they want to protect the language. Like Shakespeare, you've heard of him. I was going on a flight to Australia once, the first time I went there actually, and the man sitting next to me was a real character. He's like an Italian living in Australia. You can just, I mean, you know, you can imagine, just let your imagination run wild with that. You know. An Italian with kind of like an Italian Aussie accent, right? And we're sitting there and trying to be friendly to one another, and I'm saying, like, I said, oh, you know, I really, you know, Dante is, you know, such a divine writer, and the sonneteers of England, they took the sonnet forms from the Italian, you know, praising the greatest writer, arguably, of Italy, you know, Dante, and saying something about it. Then he wanted to say something too, you know, in praise, and he's said that his favorite English writer, he said, was Shakespeare. And I said, I'm not familiar with his work. Shakespeare. I said, I don't get it. You know, he said, you know, he make omelet. I said, oh, him. Yes. So this man, he invented like 300 or 400 words that are in common usage right now in the English language. And there are so many expressions that phrases that he coined that have entered the English language. And they've taken on context. Right? And by the way, just as a side point, he spelled these words arbitrarily. Sometimes spelling it this way, sometimes spelling it another way. Spelling was not a big deal then. They didn't get all upset about it. If you spelt a word a particular way, it didn't mean that you were how do you say, ignorant or stupid, right? As one English essay coach told people, he said, if you don't spell check your work, people will think that you're stupid. And he concluded by saying, this is British wit, he said, rarely will you want to give them that impression. There may be some occasions, but for the most part you won't. But the point is, we take these words and we give them some meaning. There are many words in English, any other language, they've come to take on some local, provincial meaning. Mud was saying, those are like the reins that are forcing that word to mean something in a particular context. He said, if you take the reins away, just like the horse will run where it wants to, he said, the word will run towards Krishna conception. That's actually where it wants to go. We've bridled it or harnessed it, and we're forcing it to submit to local context. But really, if we release that, it'll run to Krishna conception. Woo! It's not the first time. Anyway, so welcome to India. You know, you can probably hear me. Someone should say if they can hear me, although you cannot see me, because okay, good, because,
you can hear you?
Yes, because my thing is connected to something that's still working. But hopefully, one of our operators is gone out to our green generator. It's totally eco, totally green, and he's out in the backyard. It's actually run by solar wind power, and I can hear those solar blades turning now. There we go, a little rumble. So you can hear, yes. This is where I go into my story about the 3 Alwars in the dark. Oh, but lights are not going to come on here, or they are? Oh, okay. So just stand by. That's what you deal with in India and other places. Right? So you learn to appreciate the simple things in